Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Lou and you're listening to the Hear a Hotspot podcast, which is all about well-being for women both at home and at work. In this week's catch-up with Angel Channeller June Barclay, we are joined by Katie, who is the daughter of a friend and fellow meditator, and who is doing the illustrations for the book A Life with Spirit. From the outset, Katie is very candid about sharing some issues in her personal life. We then go on to discuss how Stuart has influenced her artistic contributions and her life to date. We also look at her generation and what a spiritual life looks like for them. Katie is a true inspiration, and it was a total pleasure to share this time with her. I hope you enjoy listening to her story.
Stuart, are you here now? Katie's here.
Is that a yes?
She's busy before Katie came. So it's got a little window of time, and you can only come when Katie's here.
Oh, thanks for that. I just heard that's okay.
I think me and him would have got on.
You would have done.
Gorgeous Katie. You are Jane's daughter, and Jane has been part of the meditation group for...
Not that long, has she?
Before
2
you were
years?
poorly. So
Oh, yeah.
You've been kind of out of action for 2 years, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
So it's probably nearer 3.
Maybe, yeah.
Time just... So how long after Jane coming here did you meet June?
So,
You came first, didn't you?
Yeah, so
okay.
Mum...
I met Katie first.
Yeah, so Mum hadn't been at the meditation. And was it Sarah?
And Jack.
Yeah, it was Sarah and Jackie. And I was really struggling with OCD at the time. And Sarah and Jackie both, obviously, they were close to Mum at the time. And they spoke to her about it. And they said, you should go see June. So I came to see June for some healing. And I remember the first time I walked in the door, I've told you this before, but I was just like, this is a load of bogus. I was like, I'm not doing this. And then
Just
June's
like
never met me in her life, and it's the warmest hug I've ever experienced. And she was just like, you just need a hug. And I remember coming in, and there was so much rose quartz under the bed. And yeah, and I just remember like just feeling like in that moment I was like, there's no way this isn't anything else than what it is, I guess.
And how old were you? How old are you now?
19.
Okay, so you were sort of 16 then?
Yeah, 16,
I think
15,
you were 16. Yeah.
16, 17, something like that.
Yeah.
And how did you feel after the healing?
I didn't immediately feel like... I was struggling with sleeping at the time, and I immediately felt the most relaxed I felt in a while. But it wasn't the immediate effects that like got to me. It was more that ability to relax again, that ability to have someone else take over your to take over like your being. I felt that's what I needed. I needed like the pressure off me for a moment. And so that came, and I remembered that relaxed feeling, and it gave me strife to want to gain that feeling again on my own. But yeah, it did really help. And then I think I came again a couple months later.
And you came and did meditation, remember?
Yeah, I came and did meditation for a bit. And I came with Mum.
Yeah. Mum came that day, and she was going home. I said, you're not going anywhere. You're going to sit there and you're not moving.
Is that the first time you'd met Jane?
I said, because then there's something going on between the two of you, and I need to find out what it is. She didn't go, did she? No. She sat and done as she was told.
Yeah. She's funny. No, I think it's just the pressure. Like anyone who's ill, and anyone who's, especially someone who's close to you, like even if you just have a friend who's unwell and they're struggling with anything, even if it's like a physical illness, I think just puts pressure on people around you, and they don't know how to act anymore. And I think for Mum, it was that conflict in herself that, like, I wasn't the Katie she knew anymore. I was like this different person who had been taken over by something else. And she struggled with that.
A worry. Yeah, I get that. It is worrying.
So there was no objectivity on her part, and it was very tied up.
Yeah.
With expectation and what she was missing. And
yeah, Mum blames a lot on herself, I think. And I think it was hard for her not to be able to fix it. Like any mum, they just want to fix it immediately. And so she was very on it. And yeah, she just wanted me better. And that's all she wanted and did. But it wasn't like the voices, and it wasn't like depression. It was like, because all of those things were a part of me in a sense. Whereas the OCD was something else coming in, taking away from me.
Okay, so if you just look back a little bit, you're talking about the voices and the depression. Are you happy to talk about that?
Yeah.
So you shared with me before that you hear voices and that you hear them at night, and if you're out with friends, and I think what your phrase was, and I haven't seen you probably for a couple of years, or like 18 months. No, maybe less than that actually, because of my training. So it's probably last year I saw you.
Yeah. And
you were saying how you felt that you couldn't be present 100% with your friends because the voices were always there. So can you explain what you mean by that, or what you think the voices are and how they manifest for you?
I think I've stopped asking myself like what they are, because I think I went to a psychologist a while ago, and he taught me a lot about acceptance and acceptance of yourself and just acceptance in general life. And that made me realise that the more I questioned that, the nastier the voices would get. So I've heard them since I was 5. I have about 14 presences which are there regularly, and then I get random ones from time to time.
So it's taken you a certain number of years to be able to differentiate the 14?
Not particularly. They were very strong at the start. Their personalities are always very strong. It's mostly negative stuff, but sometimes it's platonic, but it's never positive. And yeah, I hear them a lot at night. I see them the most at night. Like their physical presence in the room is as like physical as you two right now. So yeah, I guess I've just stopped asking why they're here and kind of just being like in the presence and being like, they're here right now and that's all I've got to deal with, kind of thing. I don't really know what they are. I've never questioned that.
So when you hear the voices, is it you can distinctly hear what they're saying, or you're just aware that they are talking?
The lady I've heard since I was 5, and there's a gentleman in a wheelchair. There's 2 twins, like a brother and sister that come. I can all hear exactly what they're saying. It's only for that fleeting moment. It's like if it's something really prominent, then I can like recall it and stuff. But if it isn't, then it's for that fleeting moment. It's so obvious, but it's like when you just forget a normal conversation. Whereas the rest of them are just murmurs, and I pick up the odd word, and it's never normally for like long. Like I hear them every day, but there's time.
Is there a constant in your background? Is there a constant conversation going on, or do you get moments of quiet?
Moments of quiet. Okay. Yeah, I call them episodes when the voices come.
Okay. So of a day, and how many, is it 50-50?
I'd say it's like 60% quiet, 40% with the voices, and then at night time it's like 80-20, 80% voices, 20% quiet. I think it's just because I'm stiller, and they know that I can hear them better, I guess.
So we will do some work on this, Katie. And maybe this is what this was about today. Because I never asked you these questions before, because when you came here that day, I felt like you was quite traumatised just by being here, being here with me.
Because I've had them for so long, they haven't been they're not the most prominent thing to me.
Mm.
The OCD took over my life more than the voices ever have, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just my daily life, like the voices are there, and like, but that was what I needed then, and I don't think they would have let you ask me, even if you wanted to, because I don't think I needed it then, but I needed something else more.
Yeah. So but once the door's open, if you don't know how to deal with it, that's why you get more than, because I just don't get it. I'm so protected with whoever my lot are.
So if she's split or exposed, is it that, in my simplified concepts, that she's vulnerable to people who potentially haven't passed over, and because they've not passed over, because my overriding question is why is the narrative so negative for her?
I know.
And is it because they've not passed over, so they've not gone into the light? One can imagine that you're pissed off or frustrated or confused.
Look at all that work we've done in here when we've sent people home.
So because that seems quite cruel and overriding, that you say that they're derogatory.
She could just be a channel for these people. Like, I mean, I never knew I could do that stuff. That first night when I did it at Sarah's, it just all happened. So maybe Katie's come into my life to help. She understands it now. Maybe she needed to understand it. So now we can deal with it. And we know there's souls that are stuck. How many times have we sat in here and it's all kicked off that I've sent them home? So
how did the
that was
so
a
you
bit.
came for the OCD? Did June help with the OCD?
She helped me in terms of the personal loss I'd experienced through the OCD, not the OCD itself, because I don't picture OCD as something which is, like, as I said before, it's separate from me, and therefore using myself to heal that wouldn't, it just can't be done. But yeah, you helped with just my drive to feel that relaxed again, and she just taught me simplicity. I remember walking out the room and just feeling like just simple, because life had got so complicated and everything had a meaning to it, and everything was so churned up, and I came here and everything just settled down again, and I felt I could go forwards and sort it out. But yeah, it's still with me today, and it will always be there. OCD is not something you get rid of. You just learn how to deal with it. You just learn how to live with it. But I think I'm definitely more aware of when it's happening and when I need to stop it and stuff, because you can't stop every single thought and you can't stop every single emotion you have, because otherwise you'll just end up torn apart. But
do you feel that there's a possibility that the two things could be connected?
The OCD and
hearing the voices? Because that must be quite draining to have that part of you switched on all the time, especially, and I would find it doubly draining if the language or the tone of it is not positive. You can't stop but not take it on board, but just be aware of it all the time. So, and as an analytical person, it, for me, and again, I'm aware this is totally subjective, it would have me in analytical mode all the time. It would have me processing
Working
this,
it out.
Yeah, well, I've got to do that. I've got to and that sometimes I'm so dizzy with thinking in my head, I find it very difficult to ground, and I'm much better at it now, especially in the last couple of months. So, do you think because those voices are turning your head on, and OCD is quite of a thought process, isn't it? Is applying yourself on what if and can I, or I have to, and all of that. Do you not think one might feed the other?
I'm not sure. Probably they do feed each other. I'm not sure in terms of when I was one of the causes of the OCD or reasoning or whatever you want to call it is when I was 11, I think, I had something called PANDAS, which is pediatric autoimmune neurological disorder associated with streptococcus. So I had a really sore throat for a couple of days. And I woke up one day and I felt really, really sick. And I started retching, and I retched consistently through the day and through the night for like 2 months. And in the end, PANDAS is an oral tic. So it is quite common to have an oral tic. But that part of your brain is associated with the same part that OCD originates from.
So that's a connection then?
Yes, they think that it may have triggered it or changed the chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, I just think that I've become so, not numb to it now, but I guess a negative form.
Maybe in your acceptance of it, maybe now we can work with it.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling I'm really picking up.
Yeah. I think I've just become maybe a bit too negatively acceptant to it in the fact that,
well, in a way, you've not really had a choice, so it's better to accept it rather than fight it.
I'm being told by Stuart that he'll help me work with you, so no wonder he's around you.
Okay, so shifting from, you saw June for a couple of treatments, and then, and I kind of know bits of the story, but I'm just trying to get the timeline, and I know that you are a very good artist. How did that, so you mentioned in one of June's treatments that her eyes changed when she channeled. Is that when that happened?
Yeah, so when
And they're changing now, I can feel them.
Yeah. I think that when, I don't know if we were sat here or I was on the bed.
We were sitting on here.
Yeah, I think it was literally as I walked in. And we'd been chatting for a bit. We'd done some cards. And I remember looking at her and saying, your eyes have got a lot darker. And I remember, like, it was, for me, it wasn't, because obviously, as I said, I was a bit skeptical and stuff like that. And so for me, I was a bit like, are you okay? Like, I thought something was wrong, like, and so it was hard. But yeah, I remember, like, that's one of the biggest things when I know, not that it's not you, because it's always you, but that's when I know it's more than you.
Yeah.
It's interesting you notice it, because we've known June for years and no one does, but that artist in you, that obviously that love of colour and structure and observation.
There's only been one other lady, Jane, who used to come to group, and we'd go out for coffee and she'd go, oh, I can't look at you. I've got somebody else looking at me. Only because my eyes had changed. She didn't know what it was, but she spotted that somebody else was with me. But I can feel it now. My eyes feel all...
That's really true. But at this stage, the book hadn't really been muted, had it?
No, it was only you wanted to photograph the eyes, didn't you? Changing.
Yeah, so I just thought it was really, like, interesting. And I remember I was painting a lot of, smile lines at that moment. And that was one of my projects at school. And I remember that, well, you know, that June has one of those smiles. So it's like, it's your entire face. You don't, you can't get away with, like, just smirking or anything. So, and then your eyes started changing. And I just thought it was incredible how your face was smiling and yet there was something so powerful happening. Like, your face was showing, like, lightheartedness, but your eyes were showing me a deeper, like, definition, I guess, of, like, who you were. But yeah, I did some photography and painted some of June's eyes, and then I remember,
I think the books had started, and obviously we'd need an illustrator, wouldn't we? And there was nobody else, only Stu was mentioning you. Because I still haven't seen the eyes on the wood. I don't know that even, I mean, she could have drawn stick people for all I know, couldn't she? No, it's serious, isn't it? Because I've never seen any of your artwork, but he was insistent. It had to be you.
So I know that you've done, because I've seen the sort of chakra body that you've done.
Oh yeah.
The colours. And I know you're doing one of Stuart. So were you asking her specifically to do these, or was it this is what the book's about, and then you decided?
The only specificity was the chakra body one with Jackie. Jackie wanted that one in the book.
Yeah.
And
the rose.
Yeah, the rose is obviously a big part, but the rest of it has just been me. I came to take those photos of June. I did a big photo shoot with her when we first discussed it.
Yeah.
And I just took photos of her in places where I remember her being. And so I'm doing a lot of portraits like that at the moment of her in spaces around the shed and just in the garden and things. And yeah, I'm also doing a lot of portraits of Stuart. Stuart's.
And is that from photographs or from what you see, or do you see anything?
No, so that's from a child. How old was he in that baby photo with the hat on?
Oh, when the big hat.
Yeah.
I don't know how old he was then. 12 maybe.
Yeah, something like that. So there's one of him as a kid, and then there's one which is in June's house of him standing by the sea. That was quite soon before.
That was just before he died.
Yeah, just before he died. So I'm doing it in. I guess I'm looking at. I've changed a lot over growing up, and like everyone does, and I guess I'm looking at it from that perspective. I wanted two very stark, contrasting photos because he's had an extraordinary life, and I just wanted to be able to like portray that in a way that
funny we talked about him this morning, isn't it? That's what we was chatting about.
Yeah, so I'm going to do some stuff like that. I'm also, a big thing whenever I see June is sometimes things aren't clear, like imagery. I'm very like earlier when you were talking about a fairy at the end of your bed, like I know that I can see it in my head. I can see what you like. Obviously, I can't see exactly what you saw, but I know what you were seeing. But often when I'm in the shed with June, or when we're just talking, when we're at Burr Island, there isn't a particular thing that I see like with you. It's like all abstract, and so I want to play around with that a little bit, and a bit like what's her name? The lady who does the angel drawings.
Wendy.
Oh, Wendy.
A bit like Wendy's like lights and colours.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to play around with that a little bit.
And it's fine. I'm happy for any of it. That Burr, she just told me about doing this with Stu, with going down to the rose, hadn't you? We've walked along talking about it. And would you like to come to your table? And there was those roses, weren't they? The napkins.
They had napkins shaped like roses.
We just all stood there and went, no.
Yeah.
So Stuart's come with you today. Do you feel Stuart when you draw? Have you been aware of him being part of this journey? When did that start?
When I second time I came here for healing, I remember there was an image in my head. We may have been meditating, I may have been on the bed, but it was two people holding hands. They weren't flying, but they were in like the sky. And I remember saying it to June, and June didn't even like take a breath. She was like, "That's you and Stuart." And I had no idea who Stuart was. I didn't know that he'd lost his life so young. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know any of, like, you never spoken about your family.
No.
And so that's when June explained things to me, and it made so much sense at the time because I was going through such a hard time, and I was going through those thoughts of...
He was walking up and down out there all the time you was in the bed.
And June said he was pacing up and down, so she had to open the door because he was getting angry that he wasn't in here.
You've heard him, haven't you? Meditation marches up and down.
And yes.
I've just got up and opened the door again.
So and then when I draw, don't often see him when I'm drawing him, to be fair. I don't know what that is. But I often see him when I'm drawing you. Portraits I'm doing you at the moment, he's there. It's not a feeling. I often sit on my bed and draw just because it's the most comfy place. And it's like, you know, when you sit on a bed with someone or like a seat with someone and a little bit indents next to you, it's like that, but I can't see the indentation, but I can feel it. I can feel that there's someone like sat beside me. It just sits there.
And how does that feel?
Sometimes it upsets me because I feel like not that I don't deserve it, but like I don't deserve to see him that way. Like I don't know what I've done for him to want me to do the illustrations to the book. I don't see like a positive out of that, if that makes sense. Like,
well, if the only way I
for
can
him.
explain it to you, if you spoke to anybody that knew Stu, that they would say to you, Stuart was entirely your son, because he never, he just was always around me in life. He just very caring. My mum just, she was not as caring as me. She just wasn't. She was probably, but she lost it somewhere down the line. And her and my dad had a plot to go in, and my mum was so insistent. She wanted to go with Stuart. Stuart was the be all and end all. So that's where she is. So there was always something about Stu, how loving he was. Like my mum would walk in the door and he'd go and get her slippers. The other two wouldn't even notice she'd walked in. Do you know that level? And so if you ever saw Stuart as a little one, he would be hanging on there, hanging on that leg. He'd be on my back. If he stood in, because we talked about this, no seat belts. He'd stand behind either me and do this with me top, or he'd do it to Charlie's shirt. He never stopped touching, if you like, not hugging, but just
It's like connecting.
All the time. He was very. He never said the words. He never said, "Oh, I'll be here." He did say it to Carl. About Carl, he said to me, "Don't ever think for 1 minute I won't be looking after Carl. I'll always be there for his protector." Didn't know what that meant at the time. He probably is still his protector, but that
in life or after death?
In life, that was when he said that to me. And I always thought that he would, because in his eyes, he was maybe the protector. Do you know what I mean? So if you're doing anything to do with me, that's where he would come in. So just look at him as the protector. I wouldn't be doing this, to be quite honest. I don't think I'd be working like this if Stuart hadn't gone on.
No.
So that's his job, if you like. So don't be upset about it.
I'm not like, it doesn't upset me in any way, and his presence is never scary. It's never negative in any way.
No.
It makes me question it sometimes.
Why do I get it?
Yeah, why is it that happens? Because obviously everyone does work through you, and you work with people, and so it's confusing how like.
But if this book is that important, which I keep being told,
I was going to crack a joke and go, "Why not me?" But,
yeah.
anyway, it doesn't come to. But he's come to Sarah. He comes to Jack, and that's not to belittle your experience.
No. I think you felt him in here, though.
No, I have once when I was healing you.
Yeah.
And he came up, and I think I was on the side, and I went, "Do you want to have a go?" He went, "No, you're doing all right. Carry on."
Jack goes like the Michelin woman. She goes when he comes. I mean, everybody gets him in different ways, but it's always about my healing. He's probably still that protector.
So energetically, we're all connected to you. Whether it's like you're the central organ, we're all off. And because he's with you, and maybe he's either brought us all to you, or he's fascinated or protective. So we're just part of that bigger energy.
He's brought you all.
But
he has definitely
and maybe
brought
as a youngster, he connects more with you on an energetic level, where he can relate more to you.
And he'll know the way she thinks
Yeah.
about the artwork. Because Stu was off. I'd say you're quite off the wall with your artwork. And that's how I would say about him, definitely. So I'm over the moon and blessed that he's chosen you. Really, I am. Because say this goes, for one thing, you're a newbie. You know, you're not somebody that's already
he's
known.
already established.
And just think, Katie.
But you embody who we're writing the book for.
Yeah, you do.
Well.
You're totally the person that the book is about. So imagine if this takes off and where you could go work-wise with this.
Yeah.
I know you've got a lovely place all lined up to do stuff, but this could be just, well, riding the crest of the wave, couldn't it?
Even just to be on your CV as a book illustrator.
Exactly, 100%.
Published.
No, I do feel very like honoured, and it's the best people to do it with.
Yeah.
So I couldn't ask for a better start to that kind of industry, because like it's just been the most gentle experience.
Stuart just said, what did you say? He said, tell her that I didn't get that start. He could have, but he didn't take it.
Yeah.
Which
is sweet.
It takes the pressure off us as well.
It does.
To know that.
Because who else would we go to?
Yeah, well, we did the Jack and Jane last week, so that was more about the interviews, and all of it has flowed. And I don't have to worry about whether you'll be good enough or this or that, because you're absolutely the right person to do it. So it's all going to go in. For me, it's just like, whereabouts in the book is it going to go?
Yeah.
It's just the semantics of placing it.
Yeah.
So
And
to know
maybe
that it's all
Katie
guided.
can help with that, where it goes in the book.
Yeah.
Because you'll have a feel for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple ideas. Like, definitely Stuart's section is going to be not a flip book, but his chapter, I want it to be like his face and then him slowly changing into a rose. So on the end of it's called Stuart's story, isn't it? His chapter. I think I'd quite like to go in his story, because that's his.
Yeah.
That's him while he was still down here, rather than what he does now, if that makes sense. That was him when he was just doing his like thing.
Yeah.
But it is, it's a really lovely thing to do. And it's made me feel, I've had trouble in the past of like, you know, questioning, wanting to be here and things like that. And it's made me aware of that more, but in the most like positive way. It's made me not push that part of myself away anymore, and it's made me realize that like it doesn't matter that I felt that. It's the fact that I don't feel it now, if that makes sense. It's not shameful. It makes me like resonate with someone, and it's nice for that someone not to have other stuff going on. It's nice for him to just purely be there as a protector, as you said.
That's the way I feel about him.
It's nice to know that he's just like, they're just someone else.
The feeling I'm getting from him was he knew you had those feelings. That's why. There's a lot of sides to this. You know what he did, so he would have known what that feeling was like. So if he resonated that with you, then he knew, and they know that you've got more to give or more to do. You're not just here for that short time. So he would have resonated with that and made it more prominent to me that you had to do that. Because that day I was in Salcombe and I asked you, I was out with Laurie. I'd been in the bar with Laurie, not me drinking, drinking. And you just appeared from nowhere. I didn't know you was working in that shop, that store. It was like it was set up.
Yeah.
It was totally set up that day for me to bash into you, to ask you.
Yeah.
And I know, you know who does it. You mean if you try and work it, if I tried to work that out, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I also think there's a certain talking earlier about the book of life, and the older you get, the more like a scrapbook, and it gets full of experience. And
Yeah.
when you're young, it has less in it, but every page is a wisdom. Every experience, both positive and negative. And I know I said to my daughter after an incident happened to her, is you will use this. You know, at the moment you're broken, but you will use this to help people, because only you are able to understand people who are also in a similar situation. So even if it's just to your friends or further down the line, when someone tells you that they have certain thoughts, if anyone can relate to it and go, I totally understand how you feel. This is, and if you choose to say this is how I felt, or actually it's okay that you feel that.
Yeah.
You know, there is no judgment. Just like Bronwyn feels that in our group, she's allowed to speak and there's a freedom with no judgment. I think to be anywhere, and that happens to be spirituality, but if you're talking about those teenage angst or other situations like my daughter's, you always want to be in a group of people that go, it's okay. I'm going to hold space for you, back to our container, and you explore that, but know that while you explore that, you're being held and you're safe. And actually, so you do feel safe to go. You don't. It'd be quite easy without that container. You'd just ping off, and you could get lost.
Yeah.
But to do it within a boundary, a safe, loving boundary, not a limiting boundary, you feel actually I'm now safe to go round this without losing myself or losing my direction.
I just had that feeling when you was talking about that container again, that it was Stu that planted that in your mind. And he said it is, look.
Thanks, Stu.
Because that's the protector again, being held.
What I was saying earlier, and I won't repeat it too much because it's another podcast, but you know, these little childhood cups you get where they all fit into each other in different colours. So you have a big one and you have about 10 different colours and you can turn them up and make towers and stuff. That when you're young, you're the little cup and you think, that's it, that's the size of my cup, and you fill it with whatever, but then you get the next layer. And for me, being traditionally, it was marriage and then children and then divorce and then all the things that life throws, till you end up with a big container full of 10 or 20 containers that all denote an experience or a wisdom. But by the nature of growing each of those layers like an onion, you end up with a big container with more knowledge, with more wisdom in which to hold people. So your container at the moment probably has more cups than most people your age. I mean, you're only 19, and I mean that in the most respectful way. But in that, if you have that wisdom now, and you've got those 2 or 3 cups, whether that be your voices or your depression or your OCD, you've already amalgamated wisdom within your cup to offer to your peers. And that's, I think, because the person you are, that's only going to grow. So you're way ahead of us comparatively, isn't she? Because I didn't. I was saying at your age, goodness, I was so naive. I had nothing to offer at all.
I was married at your age.
Exactly. Had things to offer.
Yeah, I'm just a baby in that. I'm going to reduce myself to a nothingness and that quite happy.
Shut up. So it's fun. That's why it feels all so meant, doesn't it, at the minute?
Well, every thread, I think I've said this before, it's like there's a gold thread running through it all, which is tying it all together. From the book that I read, which is where that original phrase came from, but it resonated so much. And that's what the temple path is, creating a container for everyone to have that experience. And it seems for me, if you said the word container to me, a month ago, you'd think, a bit of Tupperware. Or, it seems like really such a mundane word, such an everyday, basic bit of plastic. And I think there must be a pretty word, container.
And that keeps coming up.
But even if you say cup, it has a different meaning, it has a different resonance.
Yeah.
But a container is very much to hold.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
Every time you talk about it,
I'll get out my Tupperware and I'll think gold.
Yeah. It's a gold goblet.
You're thinking smelly school lunches.
Tell me the housewife. But even if you said bowl, I think it is containing. It's that word of, in its very mundane way, is incredibly nurturing. And I always do this, but it is literally, it's like a whole
holding it all together.
Yeah, just holding. Yeah, it is. It's like hands, especially the temple path, because it's we're holding space, and there's hands, you're not forgetting that you have heart chakras in your hands, and so it's done with love, it's done without judgment, it's done with safety. We're catching you, we're holding you, we're allowing you to explore,
to be who you are, and no judgment.
So do you feel, before meeting June, so you say you walked in and it was a whole load of gobbledygook, so would it be fair to say that you weren't on the spiritual journey then?
I think, I don't know if I was or I wasn't. I guess it was more the fact that I'd shut it off, because in my head I was feeling a bit like cheated, and I was feeling a bit like, and yeah, I just felt a bit like cheated, the fact that all this was happening at once, and I had the voices, and I had the OCD, and I had depression, and so I guess I was blocking out that spiritual journey, because I was thinking, I don't want any more. I don't want any more of that stuff. And it was kind of, I was already so inside my head that part of me didn't want to do the spiritual nurturing internally, but equally I didn't want to give anyone else power externally, because I'd already been taken away by the voices that like had been like cheeked, I guess, like they.
So how do you feel that you've opened yourself up to that now with June?
I think I haven't even consciously done it, and you probably find this as well. You just can't ignore it. Like, you literally can't. And June's she's got such a big presence in just general, like just as being a friend, like she's got such a big presence. And I think, I didn't have a choice basically, but not in a negative way, in a way which was like, I didn't have a choice because it's so all encompassing. As soon as it's like you give them an inch, they take a mile. Like, but I guess that depends on the person you are. Like, it depends how much you've got to give back.
I felt a little bit when I met June that it was, there you are. It felt like coming home. It's like, that's why I don't remember, because it feels like she's always been in my life, and I can't imagine my life without her. Yeah. Is that how you feel?
I feel like with June, I'm a bit the same as you. I could never picture her face when I'm not with her. I could never, like, her face is like not there when I'm not with her, if I'm not looking at a photo or something. But it is very like, how did I not know about all of this? How was this not in my life before? And how have I got through without that support? Without that higher being?
As a spokesperson, if that's okay, for your generation, do you feel that what are your friends' spiritual journeys? Do you talk to them about this? Do they have their own experience? Are they not aware or bothered by it?
They don't often have those kind of experiences. It's more about, a couple of my friends do meditation, a couple of them do yoga. I speak to them about this, but it's not, we speak in different ways. We speak, I do a lot of reading of what other people have wrote. And even if it's not about spiritual things, a lot of my friends do write. And they're being spiritual without them thinking it. And a lot of my friends are spiritual in a physical presence. So when I'm with them and we're doing something, it's very, you can tell that they're all there. That all of them's there. There's no splitting, you get all of them. And in that's very spiritual to me, being able to be grounded like that. Because I've always struggled with that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Really interesting viewpoint.
Really interesting. And I really wouldn't have known if I was grounded or not at your age, to be honest.
I was saying earlier when June and I were chatting, June's crashing around lighting candles. I was saying earlier about an experience I had in meditation, and again I won't go into detail because I'll be repeating myself, But how I ended up at the end of meditation, which is what that triangle was, that June said I got it, feeling this triangle over me, and I was relating my life's journey, say from my 20s to now, in houses, and I went back in houses and I came forward. And I've gone from big houses to a tiny house, but actually this triangle, this pyramid was about, oh, there I am, I'm there. I don't need to fill my life with houses or things or people, or I'm okay. I have no desire to have those things because I've now found me, and I feel like it's this space, but it's not an empty space. It's just beautiful and clear. And I was saying I wondered what it'd be like to have that at your age, to start out with that, rather than having to wait 30 years to have that. So when you say your friends are all there, do you feel, and again, I see it in my daughter, I'm not sure from a spiritual sense, although she sees herself as a Christian, she knows who she is as a person, and she has her boundaries. So I'm not necessarily talking about that, but it's about everything else can go, and I can literally just feel my energy, and that energy is, I'm able to separate everything from it. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I'm able to be without the world or things.
I think that is the biggest thing. I don't even know if those people know that they come across as that grounded. I don't think they know that. It's just something I've always envied with the people around me, and it's something that I've surrounded myself with, I guess, on purpose. But I just know that they're assured. They're assured of themselves, and they know who they are, and there's no tainting by external things. There's like...
Is that how you feel? Do you feel tainted?
I don't feel tainted particularly, but I feel like there are some people out there who do become tainted by external things, and mine's...
Is that by external attitude, or by external things like drink and drugs? By something physical, or a concept, or a mindset?
A bit of both.
Right. And do you think that's them? So I was saying earlier about the cup, that you tend to, at any age, you try and fill it. Well, my cup's empty, so I've got to fill it. So I'll fill it full of, whether it be parties or drugs or drink or negative relationships or marriage or a job I don't like, or to find that identity you just try and fill. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier, was actually just to be and be clear and be empty is everything. It's not having to fill it.
I think a major, not an issue with our generation, my generation, is that we don't know how to just be, because we've always had this, like, I always picture our generation as like, you know, when you go into a really raging river and somehow you're blocking the water, but yet as soon as you get in, the water seems to rise and it gets faster around you because you're acting as like a dam, and it's like connecting around you, and you're feeling like you're being dragged. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that everyone is just trying to stay still, and everyone doesn't understand why the water's going faster, even when they've made the decision to step into it. But I think that is one of the biggest things, we don't know how to sit still.
I remember saying that to Gina. Actually, there is value. Just go for a walk and be.
Yeah.
Because by being, that's when the thoughts come in, and you start to formulate your opinions. You can't suddenly think, what do I think about this? For me, I have to process. I have to wait for that to happen. I know that everyone's not like that. But she, even now, and she is very high achieving, and possibly because of this, she said, I can't do meditation. I can't be quiet. She said, literally, it makes me anxious. She will have to do gym or something to do her processing. Her meditation is active, and that could just be her personality. But I think actually generationally, I think you're so used to having an influx of communication or information. You're never alone. You're never allowed to be alone. And again, I say this without judgment, at your age, are you ever going to go, you know what, I'm going to turn my phone off for 24 hours. I'm not going to absorb any information from any source, and I'm just going to go on camp on Dartmoor and do nothing. Because I would struggle with that, because I work a lot with the computer. And I can imagine your generation, you've known nothing different. I remember a time when I didn't have a phone, when I didn't have a computer, and I'm sure for you, June, more than, talking about Eastern this morning, but your generation don't have that. You don't have that luxury.
No. I remember I went for about 4 to 6 months without a phone when I was about 15. And I remember towards the first couple of weeks, I was a bit like, it was a bit frustrating because it was hard to get hold of people. People were finding it hard to get hold of me. But then when I got into it, I didn't want to gain that back because I hadn't lost anything. If you haven't lost anything, you don't have anything to gain. I hadn't lost anything. I hadn't lost any friends. I hadn't lost any experiences. The only thing I'd lost was a bit of metal.
And people adapt. If they want to get hold of you enough, then they'll use a landline or
exactly. And I think one of the biggest things for me as a generation as well is we think a lot in the past and not particularly present. I know that's generalizing, but that's how I feel. And one of like the things I say to people every day, one of my like pieces of advice I give to a lot of my mates is hindsight will literally tear you apart if you give it that energy that you should be giving to your presence and your presence on the world and your present as a person.
So what did they? I find that really surprising because I would have thought, having a very selfish 18-year-old, that you'd either be in the present or you'd be in the future. I find that really interesting. You say that they're attached to the past. In what way? For
me, it's to do with overthinking. It's to do with overthinking situations. It's to do with overthinking that Instagram post. It's
okay, so the past as in the recent past as opposed to a year ago.
Not like full past, but like recent, like secondary past, like always one step behind your present self. And it's really hard to be in the present. It's a really hard skill to have. And
do you think that's because in the present, from what you've just described, the past feels like judgment, doesn't it? And second guessing and not feeling enough. Whereas to be in the present would be, actually, I'm good enough. I don't need to second guess what that person's going to think, or if I look nice enough, or if I said the right thing. I'm good enough in what I've presented in the past, in what I present now, and in what I'm going to present. I'm enough.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things when I speak about hindsight is just so many people. Hindsight's a brilliant thing. It teaches us how to adapt. It teaches us how to learn. But if you hold on to that too much, then you're just constantly living in the past. You're constantly questioning your own self and, in a sense, tearing yourself apart. Like, the more you question something, the more you doubt yourself.
It's a bit like I was saying to Daisy the other day, and I can't remember if I repeated it to you, going away. I said, you're going to come across a variety of people from a variety of backgrounds to a variety of ethnicity. And I said, please don't fall into comparing. I said, because as soon as you compare, it goes one of two ways, neither of which are good. Because you're either going to go, oh, they're poorer than me, or they're this. You're either feel that you're better than someone because you're devaluing them, or you feel that you're not good enough. And either way, you're going to come out feeling either you're just crap. I just said, don't do it. I said, you are enough. You do not need to compare either positive or negative to everyone else. You don't need to feel better than or worthier than or anything. And it's a bit like that with the future and the past. If you can just stick with the present, because as soon as you worry about the future, which you can't control, it makes your head spin. Especially, I know my son, having done geography, worries hugely about the climate, which is absolutely relevant. But it's like totally YOLO. You know, what's the point? I'm not going to be here in 40 years. I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have kids. The Earth's going to disappear. And he feels so anxious about that. Or from what you're saying, going in the past, oh, if I've done it wrong, or, you know, am I going to get judged? And you're just buggered either way.
Yeah, you are.
It's just a no-win situation.
Thinking about what you can do now. I think what another thing I always say to people is, if you can't change it within 10 seconds, it's not worth thinking about. If you can't change something the past 10 seconds ago, so that means that if you said something wrong, you can still apologise. You can still apologise. If someone's got something in their teeth, tell them. They can get that out within 10 seconds, and it's going to make their day better. It's going to improve something. If someone's got something on their face that's been there for years, don't tell them. They can't change that. They don't need to change that. That's part of them. If someone doesn't see life the way you see it, doesn't give you the right to tell them that they need to change that.
That's the best advice. That really is good advice.
It's just a 10 seconds.
I think it's about holding your space and inspiring people, because you can't change people. You can't tell people what to be. But if you are enough and you are confident in who you are and you're you shine your light, however you do it, whether you do it as an artist or as a musician or as a nurse or as a hairdresser or as a pastor or whatever it is, if you shine your light, you will affect everyone around you in a positive light, and they will affect everyone else. And it's about being comfortable in that space and without that judgment. Because when you've taught us, you can't change the starving children, and we can all talk about it, and it all brings negative energy in. It doesn't mean that our hearts don't bleed and we don't care, but we can't change it.
No.
But what you can do, and I say to my kids, never underestimate the power of one. There's single people change the world. You can only ever be responsible for your actions.
Exactly.
And that's, there's no point telling other people you're doing it wrong or you're doing this. Just own your shit.
If everyone thought that they can do something in the world, then nothing would have changed. It was one singular person that started everything that's ever been changed. And that comes with negative change as well. And that comes in negative experiences, but that's how we keep turning. That's how we keep moving forward. And I think having that knowledge that you have the power of your own actions, as you said, over no one else's actions, but just because no one else is doing it doesn't mean you shouldn't be.
And that's the hard thing, I think, about your generation or just being young. Is I remember saying to my son, well, you use that communication app, whatever it was, whether it was WhatsApp or Snapchat, you be the game changer. And that's hard when you're young to step out of line and do something that's, whether it be a fashion statement or a food statement or a sexual statement or a relationship statement. It is easier to go, actually, I'm just going to duck my head and I'm going to go in the streamline behind everyone else because I don't want to put my head above the parapet.
Yeah. You've
got to really own your shit to do that, and it's amazing when they do.
Yeah.
And they become beacons, I think, and it's ballsy to do that. And you've got to come from a potentially a safe space, where your feet are grounded and the ground is solid in order to stand up. But it's tough when you're younger, really tough. I've only just done it. I'm 50.
It's true that it's tougher. And especially now. I don't remember it being as tough. Maybe it was, but I don't remember it being as tough.
No.
When I was
you
young.
guys have got a whole load of stuff to carry. An information overload, and it's, hats off. But having said that, as the mother of three, one who is more vocal, only because she's older and she's a girl, I think, God, if she's anything to go by, goosebumps, they're going to storm the world. Hang on, world, just give us a few more years, because there's a generation coming who are phenomenal, who absolutely own their shit.
And I do really believe that will be the way, anyway. They're being guided to do that anyway. I think we was all a bit lax because, well, for my generation, after the war, I think the world had had enough grief. So we was maybe, it was but it was.
I think it's healed in such a way, it's become so self-indulgent.
Yeah, it has.
That it's now damaging the world.
Yeah.
And we have to,
come back
we know the world
again.
will survive without us, but we have to heal the damage that we've done and take responsibility.
I think it's the pendulum thing. It's sprung. It's gone so far that way, and it'll come back now. To be honest, I know that everybody worries about what's going on with the world, but if you're just happy to shine your light and do your bit, I think we'll be all right. I've not heard anything from over that side. I keep getting told it's evolution, so who knows? I could be wrong.
We have to wrap up. Katie, is there anything else you really want to add about your contribution to the book?
No, just that I'm incredibly excited about it. I'm excited to see it finished.
Oh no.
Do you think it's something that your generation would read?
I think so. I've done a lot of previous art projects and stuff. I've done a lot of work on how we as a generation have a very different outlook on our knowledge of self and how well we know that self and how we're questioning self more than ever. And I think this book does answer those questions, but in a different way. But I think it's a book that people need to read. It's a book that just education. It's just all, and it doesn't even matter if they don't read it. It's just if they were willing to, that would be brilliant. Because I think you can never not learn enough.
I think it's really exciting that we've got 3 generations in this room, and it doesn't feel like that.
No.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. I was thinking about that this morning, thinking, that's a really weird thing to say, but there feels a unity or a joint, just a joining that is beyond age or anything else.
It is.
And that's the beauty of it, really, isn't it?
And maybe it had to be this way for me to be the older one and bring it to the fore. And then we've got Jack and Jane. That's your generation, isn't it? And now we've got Katie, the younger generation, that sees it through different eyes. And just imagine how powerful that's going to be.
Yeah. On that note, thank you, Katie, for joining us.
My pleasure.
I can't wait to see your work. Thank you so much for listening to the Hera Hotspot podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to my chat with June and Casey. Next week, I'll once again be talking to June Barclay, where she channels Yeshua, and we talk about what the church looked like then and now. Until then, take care.